Do you support the movement Antifa?
Support in terms of what, method or ideology?
Both.
I'm not anti-violence in the protests. I think that sometimes...
You're not anti-violence?
No.
I get called a Nazi by some of those.
I mean, you can still... Nazism is a political ideology. Jewish is an ethno-religious group. So you can be both.
Really? Okay.
The other day I was covering a pro-Hong Kong rally when I noticed police responding to what seemed to be a minor disturbance in the crowd. Being my curious self, I followed police to see what was happening. It turned out that there was a group of Proud Boys who came to support the rally, and a leftist was confronting or challenging them about their white supremacy. So naturally, I went to speak to the bloke.
Or if it's not and they got super upset.
Can I have a little... What's going on? What's happening with these boys?
Oh, I was just asking if they're affiliated with the US chapters and the kind of the white nationalist somewhat history as it's portrayed in the media.
Okay. Do you believe the media?
Do I believe the media?
Everything the media says? So do you believe that they're white nationalists?
The
Proud Boys.
That's what I asked them.
Yeah. Is it the Proud Boys? Is that...
That's what it says on it, yeah?
I'm trying to understand. So you think that the Proud Boys are white nationalists?
Well, they've been associated with white nationalism, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I don't know if these guys are the same deal, or if they're a Aussie chapter who has different views. I don't know. They said they wouldn't comment.
Do you know Gavin McInnes?
Yeah, I know of him.
Is he a white nationalist?
He is portrayed that way. As I say, I thought I'd come and ask the source, seeing as they were nearby. I've never seen the Proud Boys before, so I thought, well, why not ask the source?
Where are you from?
London originally.
Ah. Where are you here now? You live here?
I'm based in lots of different places, but here sometimes.
So that's all it was, just...
Apparently questions aren't that welcome, so I'm not entirely
What
sure.
exactly did you ask?
Are you affiliated with the US Proud Boys? Is it white nationalism that you guys are involved with?
Is it white nationalism you guys are involved with? Okay. Tone possibly matters, but it still strikes me as a little odd because the group were claiming that he was accusing and essentially hassling them about being white nationalists. But then immediately one of the Proud Boys stepped in.
Don't lie about what you asked, mate. Simple as that.
What did he ask? What did he ask?
About same questions 10 times. We gave you the answer 10 times.
What was the question he asked? What was the question?
Well, he goes, what are you guys here for starters? And we tell him we're here pro Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Then he accuses us of being white nationalists. Didn't ask us. You did not ask us. You accused us. That's wrong.
What was the wording?
The Proud Boys aren't you white? Aren't you white nationalists?
Aren't you white nationalists? Aren't you?
Ah, that makes more sense now. It wasn't an innocent, is it white nationalism you guys are involved with? It was more of an accusation.
Is it white nationalism that you guys are involved with? Aren't you white nationalists?
Aren't you white nationalists? Aren't you? We said no. You kept asking. You asked about 10 times. We asked you to go away several times.
I didn't mention white nationalism again.
Bullshit! You're lying.
No, I'm not.
Okay, you've already lied once, and you seem pretty convinced that they're white nationalists. So I'm going to take the group's word for it that you accused them of it numerous times. And to be honest, the rest of our conversation makes me pretty sure you didn't just ask them at once.
You're just lying, mate.
I
asked you several times.
That's all right. That's all right. Let me ask you something.
Demonstration. Don't interrupt the demonstration we're viewing. You kept doing it.
You're viewing or
pushed
you're supporting?
Well, I certainly commend old mate for having a civil discussion with me, which is rare for his type to say the least. He certainly knew how to be condescending at times.
Let me ask you. So, do you accept the answer that when they say to you that they're not white nationalists?
No, I'm adding it to the information that I have.
Okay. Are you accepting them, or are you?
Do I believe him?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, no.
So then, why are you asking him then? If you're not going to believe him, what's the point of asking?
I want to know if it's something that's open and admitted, or if it's something that's more clandestine.
So you're saying if he doesn't admit it, he's just lying about it, he's hiding it?
No, I'm saying I'm adding it to the information that I have. So the research, the history of the Proud Boys in the US, I don't know anything about the Aussie chapter. That's what I was asking them. Are you guys this? Do you do this? Are you affiliated? And the answers got tense rather quickly.
Smug. This exchange demonstrates that he wasn't there to clarify anything. He was clearly provoking the group. Remember, at first he said he was just asking them because he wasn't sure. Now he says he was asking them to see if they would hide their white supremacy, meaning he already knows that they're white supremacists and he just wants to see how they would react to the question. Like I said, smug.
You're not affiliated. No, we said we can't
You asked us
comment.
if we're
No,
white nationalists,
right.
mate. We said no. Clearly we're not.
We said no, you kept persisting, and then we said
Yeah.
no.
We asked you to go away several times, mate. You can't bring your mates here and bully people. It's fucking over.
Sorry? My
The
mates?
day of
I'm not here with
the
my
day of
mates.
bullying people is over, mate. For you guys, it's over.
Who's we guys?
You and your friends, mate. It's over. Just remember that.
Do you think they have a right to support the Hong Kong movement?
Right to support it? Yeah, I mean they can have a right to do whatever they like.
But you believe it clashes with their ideals?
No, I'm just interested. I was interested in whether they were here, which side they were here for. Considering there isn't a pro-Western view of the Proud Boys in the US, I don't know if it's the same with the Aussie ones, or whether it's a more multicultural view, which it seems to be. But I have no idea if that's actually realistic or not. Like I don't know what
Do
they're.
you know anyone in Proud Boys in the US?
No.
No. So you go on by CNN. Where are you getting the information on the Proud Boys? Just by main.
Oh, all over the place. I mean, even their kind of the Wikipedia page, which everyone can edit, they say they don't edit it. So the first lines of that talk about alt-right, they talk about white nationalism, they talk about no women allowed, they talk about pro-Western.
So Wikipedia is your source on them.
No, I'm just saying it's like it's the first bit of info you come across, and if they're not willing to represent, I don't know why they're complaining about people having questions if they're represented like that online, which anyone can edit Wikipedia.
Someone wrote a story about you, calling you whatever, a white nationalist,
Right.
or calling you whatever, you don't even care. Would you have to defend it? And if you don't defend it, if you don't defend your position, then it makes you that? Is that?
If I choose not to change something that I can edit online, which is open to anybody, and I choose to leave it there, what does that say about my willingness to actually address the allegations?
Let's get something straight. Anyone can edit Wikipedia pages, but anyone else can edit it back. For example, in my personal experience, Antifa groups set up one about me, which made outrageous claims about my work and my personal life. Then my good mate Sydney Watson got extremely angry on my behalf, and she fixed it. It took maximum 2 hours before it was back to another Antifa version. Sydney wasn't willing to give up and got into a virtual war with these keyboard warriors until Wikipedia just pulled the entire page. But to be honest, I couldn't care less what they were writing about me. And even if Sydney hadn't have edited it, it didn't make what they were saying true.
You have the choice. If someone put a poster up saying, you're a whatever, and you have the ability to spray paint over it, but you don't, you're like,
someone,
that's cool, just
and
leave
then,
it.
and then there's a
What does that
really,
mean?
and
What does it mean?
let's just pretend there's a really committed group who will jump straight back on and change it back over. How many times do you have to do it before you believe them that they're not white supremacists? White?
Being a bit disingenuous.
I mean, they kind of said that they don't bother, so I was just like, okay, that's...
By the way, thanks Sid for going into bat for me. You know I love you.
Now the problem is that they don't edit their Wikipedia page.
No, I was asking about how they're represented is accurate with my questioning, because that's how they are represented online. Do you think that's not how they're represented
Who are you
online?
affiliated with?
No, I'm freelance.
Oh, okay. Do you believe everything you hear about Antifa?
About who?
Antifa, is everything you read about them
Do you
true?
support anti-fascists? Do you support the movement Antifa?
Support in terms of what method or ideology?
Both.
I'm not anti-violence in the protests. I think that
You're
sometimes...
not anti-violence?
No.
So you're pro-violence? Clearly not. When you attack me
No.
from behind,
When I what?
when you grab me from behind, you're clearly not anti-violent. protest.
Grabbed you from behind?
He said he's not anti-violence.
No, he's pro-violence.
He's not anti.
He's
Pro-violence.
Okay, so
I have no problem with beef. Yes.
you don't.
No
Okay,
issue.
so
Would you like to take it out?
Take a what?
Would you like to go out there and we'll finish it off, mate? We'll finish the beef. We've got no problem with it. No. Would you like to?
settle down. That's not my point.
That's not the answer.
So you don't. So you don't. You're not Antifa. You have no problem with their violence.
I have no problem with it, but I don't have no problem with violence as an end result if it's necessary. No.
What? Bro, what are you talking about? What do you mean by when necessary? When is political violence ever necessary? And the scariest part of this is how such a polite person who is willing to engage in respectful political discourse is so calmly condoning political violence.
Their ideology you support.
Or being anti-fascist.
Well, that's by name. They're often acting pretty fascist. You don't believe?
You think they're fascist?
I think a lot of their actions are quite fascist. Yeah. way they
fascism as in the political ideology? Do you think
their actions are quite fascist.
Do you mean the fact that they're violent makes them fascist?
I think violence to shut down freedom of speech is a fascist action.
Yeah,
correct.
but tolerating intolerance doesn't work. There's a limit on it. There's the
Really?
paradox of intolerance, you know what I mean? So it's like if you tolerate...
Who gets to define that line? You?
It seems to be cultural and it changes over time.
Yeah, so if a group of fascists decide that the line is here, then suddenly we should follow them. They're the ones that are the gatekeepers now, the Antifa organisation.
I mean, you're calling them fascists.
I think the way that they act is quite fascist. You're calling them white supremacists.
No.
If you look online, there's
Right.
plenty of places
I
online that
asked
call them fascists.
I asked them if they were.
And they said no.
Actually,
Yeah,
But there's,
which is fine.
but there's
Yeah, go check with me. Honestly, that's because that's
and,
where the info
and,
is.
okay, so in Antifa,
If it's wrong, you should edit it.
I've already gone over Wikipedia and how it works and why his argument about them being responsible for editing it is flawed. But what I don't get is even if they could change it, why is it their personal responsibility? For example, if I was a member of a bowls club and someone wrote defamatory crap about the club on Wikipedia, it wouldn't be my responsibility to edit it, and no one would expect me to do it. So why is he applying a different set of rules for this group? Don't answer, we get it. He's no fan of the Proud Boys.
You'll find on the Antifa websites and Wikipedia stuff that they are fascists.
there's plenty of places online that say that they're fascists.
But they're not all publicly editable sources of information, are they?
So you're saying that if it's not on Wikipedia, so Wikipedia is your source.
No, if you can't be bothered changing an allegation on Wikipedia, which you have access and the ability to engage with, what does that say about what you want to be represented as?
Okay.
I mean, I didn't even know if they're affiliated with the US one, so they might be in a totally different group that's not related at all. When I asked that question, that was given a big thumbs down, so I don't know. I still don't know.
Okay, but are you affiliated to the anti-fascist groups?
No.
No, you just support them.
Support them?
Support their work, what they do, what they
That's like
stand
saying-
for,
that's
their
like- that's like-
violence.
That's like saying, do you support the Australian government? Some things they do are right, some things they do are pretty screwed up.
No. Antifa are nothing like the Australian government. No one democratically elects Antifa, so they have zero mandate to do some of their pretty screwed up things. The Aussie government, as much as I hate them sometimes, they kind of have a mandate. But old mate happens to be a Remainer from London, so that mandate means nothing to him.
What do Antifa do that's screwed up?
I thought we were talking about Proud Boys.
All right, I'm just trying to get...
Well, I'm sure there are like overzealous idiots in Antifa, just like there are in any group, and people that go too far. But as a general rule,
What would be too far?
What's their aim?
What's
It's
too far?
to remove fascism, to be against kind of racism and white nationalism, and to fight for that, and to put it down into fists if it needs to be done.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what Antifa stands for. Notice how I tried to get him to clarify what's too far and at what point does it need to be done all the way down to fists. But he ignores the question. So let me answer on his behalf. When they're designated fascists by radical leftists.
It seems like they'll call anybody a fascist who's slightly right of their worldview.
Sure. I mean, you did the same thing. You call them fascists.
Precisely. See, if I was going to apply his logic, does that mean I now have the right to attack them violently, now that I've classified them as fascists? Or do I have to be part of Antifa to define who is a fascist? And only then can I bash him?
I get called a Nazi by some of those.
I mean, you can still... Nazis is a political ideology. Jewish is an ethno-religious group. So you can be both.
Really? Okay.
I guess I'm fair game then, eh?
I've been to many events like this, and there's Antifa there, and I'll walk up to them. They won't talk to me like you're talking to me, I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I can probably see why also.
Why?
Well, you're coming from quite a partisan kind of view on this whole thing. It's like someone asking, like, "Hey, aren't Proud Boys white nationalists?" is not a weird question to ask, right? Because it's written. That's the history that's written all in the media. It's painted as that. So asking that question should not be.
So if I walked up to an Antifa group and go, "Aren't Antifa a domestic terrorist organisation?"
Yeah, I mean, and then they started to get violent with you. What would you think of them? If they started to get aggro when you just ask them that, and they say, actually, no, you may not know who we are. This is what we are. But if they want to get like aggro and like start, and, like,
So
then wanna
10
go
out of
fight-
10 out of 10 times they get aggro. Now this group, you walked up to them, asked them if they're white supremacists.
I mean,
how
I'm not
would it
saying that you
prove?
guys are better or worse.
I'm not with them. How would that prove that they're white supremacists?
Wait up. He gets why Antifa don't engage with me because I'm coming from a partisan view, but he doesn't understand why a group of Proud Boys who he approached and asked, "Are you guys white supremacists or white nationalists?" weren't interested in talking to him. I think we can all agree that his line of questioning was pretty bloody partisan. Then he uses their response as some sort of proof that they are white supremacists. The perfect part is that the analogy he gave of Antifa is spot on. They do get violent every single time you ask them a question, let alone if you accuse them of being domestic terrorists. And I agree with him. It does prove that they're domestic terrorists when they get violent. But in his case, he walked up and accused a group of men, one whom happens to be Indian, of being white supremacists. They answered no numerous times and told him to leave them alone. So what does that prove? Even if they'd gotten violent, it still wouldn't have proven that they're white supremacists. It just would have proved that they're violent. Now all he's proven is that they're not violent and they don't support white supremacists.
If someone walks up to me and calls me a Nazi, which happens,
Right.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not
Why
going to
does anyone
defend.
call you a Nazi?
Because they don't like my worldview.
Is your
Those aren't.
worldview aligned with the Nazis?
No, my family escaped the Nazis. I'm not. I would
No,
not.
that's a kind of that's not really a claim that works.
I don't like Nazis.
Actually, mate, being a proud Jew and having a family who escaped the Holocaust is a great claim that works against being labelled a Nazi. Almost the entire ideology of Nazism is targeted directly at me. So it is by definition impossible for me to be a Nazi and a proud Jew simultaneously. Unless I hated my grandparents and was suicidal. But otherwise, it's impossible.
Now, if somebody walks up to me and calls me a Nazi, I'm not going to sit here and defend such a, to me, a disgraceful
But if
position.
they ask you,
Because why the hell would someone walk up to me, a well-known Jew, and ask me if I was a Nazi? Unless they were trying to provoke a particular response. A little bit like walking up to a group and accusing them of being white supremacists. You know, so like you.
Nazi scum! Off the streets! Nazi scum!
All right. We're going to move on.
have fun with that.
Thank you
What's
for your
your
time, Avi. How you going, mate? Yes, I did too. How you doing? Are you going to the rabbi tonight?
No. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
You representing this?
I'm not representing. I'm here talking to people about things.
Yeah.
Guys, stay white, stay proud. If you support the work we do here at TR.NEWS, unlike the unwashed, we don't have major funding from George Soros. We rely solely on your generosity. So please go to TR.NEWS/support and help us report on this mess.